Good morning. I'm CEO of Opua and chair of the Dunwoody-Perimeter Chamber.
Hello, I'm Elaine Armstrong, Vice President of Marketing at Goodwill of North Georgia and Chair-elect for the DeKalb County Chamber of Commerce. While our two chambers may have separate boards and missions, we truly believe in chamber collaboration. One of the ways we do this is by partnering on events such as this one.
Exactly, Elaine. That is why I'm so excited to share the screen with you today and to explain why this event is so important. These past 18 months have been uncertain, at times intense, and overall have brought to the forefront how much our communities and our members need our organizations.
But additionally, it has shown us the importance of the chambers. In the past, the chambers have advocated on behalf of their members and communities as it pertains to economic development and policy, but never have our organizations advocated for our members on such a grassroots level as we are doing today.
That is so true. Our organizations have been therapists, distributors of information, digital pioneers, and advocates. Since the beginning of the pandemic, our members and communities have called on our organizations and we answered. Issues have included PPP, EIDL eligibility, infrastructure, outdoor seating at restaurants, signage, and so much more. All of these items have been imperative in helping our communities to survive these difficult times and thrive moving forward.
So, as we continue to recover, one of the best ways in which our chambers can help our communities and businesses thrive is to engage with our elected officials. And that's why we're holding this event today. We believe it's imperative for our residents, business owners, employees, and all who are engaged in making our community a better place to have relationships and engagement with our elected officials. Therefore, we're partnering to bring you the Legislative Preview, an opportunity for you to engage with your elected officials as you hear a preview of what's to come during the 2022 legislative session. Today's event is made possible by our generous sponsors, and we'd like to acknowledge them right now: Georgia Power, AT&T, KLS Workforce Solutions, the Hispanic Health Coalition of Georgia, and 3TG Staffing Solutions. Make sure you take a moment during this event to navigate to the expo area and visit our virtual sponsor booth where you can learn more about our sponsors. And please stay tuned on this stage to hear from our United States Representative Hank Johnson in just a few moments.
In his 8th term of the U.S. House of Representatives from Georgia's 4th Congressional District, which encompasses parts of DeKalb, Gwinnett, and Newton counties and all of Rockdale County, Congressman Hank Johnson has distinguished himself as a substantive, effective lawmaker and a leading national progressive voice. Named one of the most effective Democrats in Congress by University of Virginia and University of Vanderbilt studies, Representative Johnson has proven his ability to get things done. Today, I have the privilege of introducing U.S. Congressman Hank Johnson.
Well, thank you so much, Siobhan, for that kind introduction. And good morning, everyone. First off, I'd like to say that I hope everyone enjoyed the Thanksgiving holidays as much as I did. And secondly, I'd like to say thank you to the DeKalb and Dunwoody-Perimeter Chambers of Commerce for inviting me to update you on where we are legislatively in Washington and how that impacts what's happening on the ground in Georgia. To say that 2021 has been an eventful year is a gross understatement. 2021 has been a monumental year in the history of this country, and the United States Congress has been ground zero. All eyes were on Georgia for the January 5th election, where Georgia voters flipped the United States Senate by electing 2 Democrat senators. The very next day was a day of infamy, an insurrectionist attack on Congress itself and the Capitol under siege. President Biden and Vice President Harris were sworn in on January 20th. And in his inaugural speech, President Biden noted that, quote, "Democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. At this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. From now on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we can be and we must be, end quote. President Biden went on to observe that, quote, few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. A once in a century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost, hundreds of thousands of businesses closed, end quote. The nation was indeed on shaky ground on January 20th, 2021, not yet a year ago. In case you have forgotten, America was in the midst of the greatest recession since the Great Depression, with no end in sight. But much can happen in a year, and much has happened in Congress since January. President Biden, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic laying waste to our country, proposed the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, a $1.9 trillion economic stimulus bill that Congress passed and President Biden signed into law on March 11th of 2021. To speed up America's recovery from the economic and health effects of the pandemic, the American Rescue Plan did just that by putting shots in arms, money into pocketbooks, getting kids back to school safely, and getting people back to work. No one can argue that the Biden American Rescue Plan failed. In fact, it has been a rousing success. Every single Republican in Congress voted against the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. People may have already forgotten, but in the months and weeks before the American Rescue Plan was passed, we lost 4 million jobs. The fact that we are essentially back to full employment is a major achievement. Without the American Rescue Plan, it would have taken another 4 years of suffering before real GDP returned to its pre-pandemic levels, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. Georgia is now just 60,000 jobs shy of the level in February 2020 when the pandemic began. The fact that Georgia's unemployment rate is now at just 3.1% shows the overall economy continuing to churn back towards pre-pandemic levels. There's no question that the American Rescue Plan is directly responsible for turning around our economy. The rescue plan was instrumental in helping restaurants and thousands of small businesses in the metro area and the 4th District weather the worst effects of the pandemic and reopen safely and begin hiring employees back. The American Rescue Plan provided Georgia state government and its agencies with about $4.7 billion. The 159 counties and cities in Georgia are sharing an additional $3.6 billion. Of that amount, the counties that make up Georgia's 4th District, DeKalb, Rockdale, Newton, and Gwinnett, received more than $358 million. Excuse me. And the cities within Georgia for an additional $60 million in funding to help struggling families and businesses survive during the COVID-19 pandemic and to save essential jobs and services. I was proud to vote in favor of the American Rescue Plan, and I'm also proud to have recently voted to pass the $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, which is now law. It represents generational change and investment in America's future. The Investment and Jobs Act will put America on course to rebuild a stronger and more resilient economy and supply chain by investing in our ports, roads and bridges, railway system, our airports, replacing lead pipes so that we can deliver clean drinking water to our people, extending broadband to bring high-speed internet throughout America, and cleaning up our environment and meeting the challenge of climate change by building a network of electric vehicle charging stations to support the fast-growing conversion from fossil fuel-powered internal combustion engines to clean-running electric vehicles. This investment in America's infrastructure is also an economic stimulus which will create millions of good-paying union jobs. Our region's crumbling and outdated infrastructure weakens our economy, hurts families, and causes added costs and delays for American businesses trying to attract workers and customers and bring their goods to market. In the wake of the pandemic, poor infrastructure has struggled to keep up with a sharp increase in consumer demand, resulting in added costs for businesses and delays for consumers. The United States ranks 13th globally in terms of the quality of our infrastructure, and the American Society of Civil Engineers gave the condition of our infrastructure a C minus. As our economy continues its strong recovery, improving infrastructure in every state in the union, growing the economy and helping Americans get back to work while advancing justice and opportunity for all is the focus of our agenda. Now I'm going to drill down into what the law means nationally and specifically for Georgia and our communities. Specifically, the Investment and Jobs Act will rebuild roads and bridges nationwide, including the largest bridge investment since the construction of the interstate highway system 7 decades ago. For Georgia, that means a minimum of $8.9 billion for roads and $225 million for bridges. More than 2,260 miles of highway across Georgia are categorized as in poor condition. The state also has 374 bridges that have been deemed structurally deficient. Georgia will also be able to compete for grants that could bring in additional dollars for roadway upgrades, including funding to reconnect communities that have been divided by highways or other infrastructure. The Investment and Jobs Act delivers clean drinking water to 10 million families and more than 400,000 schools and child care facilities nationwide, with the largest ever investment in American water infrastructure to replace lead pipes and service lines across the nation. A recent study found Georgia, along with 20 other states, received an F grade for water quality in public schools. The law includes $55 billion nationwide for clean water, the largest ever investment in clean water. The road money and wastewater funds also help clean up legacy pollution, which is an important step in advancing environmental justice. There's $1 billion in this law to help reconnect communities torn apart by highways as well. And for those of us in South DeKalb, wastewater spills from the Snapfinger and Pole Bridge wastewater treatment plants are an ongoing issue, as is pollution and degradation of the South River. Landfills are also an issue in our communities, and toxic coal ash is something I've worked on during my tenure in Congress. So I'll be working with my federal, state, and local partners to bring funds to help stem the tide of environmental degradation. The Investment and Jobs Act expands access to reliable high-speed internet to help more families get online for work and school. Every state is receiving $100 million to increase broadband access, and billions more will be divided up among the states according to a formula that is based upon the number of people who don't have reliable internet. The money is to be used to address both the lack of affordable internet options, which is usually a barrier in poorer neighborhoods, and the lack of connectivity. As in so many other disparities that became crystal clear to us during the height of the pandemic, the digital gap is directly correlated to the achievement gap. So this measure is one of the most important as we work to bring more equity to our constituents. The Investment in Jobs Act makes historic improvements in public transit with the largest federal investment in American history and the largest federal investment in passenger rail since the creation of Amtrak. The law includes nearly $1.4 billion over 5 years for public transportation in Georgia, including $923 million for metropolitan Atlanta. I'm working hard to bring heavy rail to South DeKalb so we can connect the entire county from Dunwoody in the north to Emory and the CDC to the west, and Panola and Stonecrest to the south. Last week, I participated in a groundbreaking on renovations to the North Indian Creek MARTA station and look for stations that impact you and your businesses directly to see renovations as well, including the Dunwoody, Doraville, Chamblee, and Brookhaven stations, to name a few. The Investment in Jobs Act supports action to address the climate crisis, making down payments on clean energy transmission, a clean and resilient electric grid, electric vehicle infrastructure, and more. Georgia is going to receive $135 million for this part of the program. Convenience stores have resisted installing EV or electric vehicle charging stations, saying there's not enough demand. The bill is designed to address that problem by helping fund the build out of a national network of electric vehicle charging stations. Transportation was responsible for about 29% of all greenhouse gases produced in the U.S. in 2019, according to data from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And in car-centric Georgia, the transportation generates roughly 45% of all energy-related carbon dioxide emissions, more than any other sector in the state's economy, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration's most recent estimates. Georgia has the 7th highest number of public charging stations in the country, with 3,573, according to a report released recently by the nonprofit Environment Georgia Research and Policy Center. The state also ranks 7th in the total number of combined electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles sold through 2020, the report shows. More than $50 billion in the infrastructure bill is earmarked to help communities adapt to the threats posed by climate change, such as rising sea levels and more damaging storms that are already having a negative impact on Georgia's coast. The bill also includes more than $65 billion to bolster electric grids across the country, which are experiencing longer and more frequent outages. As far as our ports, shipping, and airports are concerned, the Port of Savannah is getting $8 million to help convert 5 existing facilities into container yards. The pop-up yards will be used to lessen congestion on the docks at the port and an onshore bottleneck in the supply chain leading from Asian factories to the manufacturers and retailers in America. That congestion, recently more than 80,000 containers were stacked at the Port of Savannah, slows deliveries and raises costs. In fact, I raised this very issue at a recent T&I full Transportation and Infrastructure full committee hearing on the national supply chain crisis. Getting many of the containers inland by rail and truck will bring them closer to their destinations while freeing space at the port for more. Savannah, the second largest port on the East Coast, has added nearly 400 workers in the past year, expanding its workforce to about 1,520. The Georgia Ports Authority also has other massive projects underway that will add to the port's overall capacity. Georgia airports are slated for more than $600 million. The bill includes $619 million for repairs and upgrades at Georgia airports over 5 years. The Georgia Department of Transportation testified before a meeting of a state legislative joint study committee on airport infrastructure and improvements this fall that it would need about $1.3 billion to fund recommended airport projects across the state. That amounts to about $411 million needed annually, with about $52 million in federal funding and $16 million in state funding available each year. There's an annual deficit of roughly $343 million. And the Investment and Jobs Act will help to bridge that gap. So that's an overview of what the $1.2 trillion infrastructure law means nationwide, and more specifically here in Georgia. All these investments mean we're putting Georgians back to work, creating millions of good paying union jobs that can't be outsourced, and will help rebuild the backbone of our country, which is the middle class. Now, H.R. 5376, the Build Back Better Act, is also transformational legislation that lowers costs for American families, creates jobs, and cuts taxes for working people and families. It's an investment in America's people. Build Back Better gives more than 35 million families a major tax cut by extending the Biden child tax credit. This means that parents of children will continue getting the $3,600 per child tax credit monthly, instead of when they file their taxes and get their tax refund. For children 5 and under, the family gets $300 per month. And for children ages 6 to 17 years, it's $250 per month per child. This feature alone is a game changer for 35 million families and cuts the Black poverty rate by 34%. The Build Back Better Act also lowers the everyday cost that burden working families, from child care to health care and more. It saves most families more than half their current spending on child care, ensuring the vast majority of families will have to pay no more than 7% of their income for child care. It expands the basic promise of free schooling in America for the first time in 100 years, with universal pre-K for all 3 and 4-year-olds, 2 years of universal preschool. It establishes a universal and permanent paid family and medical leave program, providing 4 weeks of paid parental, family caregiving, and medical leave. It expands access to high quality home care for older adults and people with disabilities, and it helps older Americans access affordable hearing care by expanding Medicaid. It will finally allow for the negotiation of lower drug costs for seniors and halts Big Pharma's outrageous price hikes above inflation for all Americans. And it ensures Americans with diabetes don't pay more than $35 per month for their insulin. It creates a new out-of-pocket cap of $2,000 on what seniors pay for their drugs in Medicare Part D. It expands the Affordable Care Act to make coverage more affordable for those who buy insurance on their own, and it dramatically lowers premiums in the marketplace, with individuals seeing a reduction in their premiums of more than $800 per year. It expands the ACA to cover those in states like Georgia that have refused to adopt the Medicaid expansion. And the Build Back Better Act will also cut the cost of post-secondary education by increasing the maximum Pell Grant. It reduces families' housing costs and expands housing options with a major affordable housing initiative. By reducing the burden on families through lower child care and medical care costs, we can enable more people to participate in the workforce, particularly women whose careers have suffered disproportionately from the pandemic. According to the Department of Labor, this pandemic has disproportionately impacted women. The adult women's employment rate, 4.3%, is at its lowest pre-pandemic level since September of 1988. And in June, there were 7.2% fewer adult Black women, 5.9% fewer adult Hispanic women, and 4.8% fewer adult white women employed compared with February of 2020. And by reducing costs for so many households, we are also saving consumers money that they can then spend at the businesses in their local community. So we're creating more frequent customers. And I'm pleased to report that in the Build Back Better Act, mine and Senator Ossoff's Public Transportation Expansion Act, which would fund construction of public transportation, specifically connecting affordable housing with transit networks in order to serve riders and communities in low-income communities, is included. It's included in the Build Back Better Act. This $10 billion fund will support access to affordable housing and enhance mobility for low-income people and residents of disadvantaged or persistent poverty communities. This investment will help break the crippling cycle of car dependence that is required for one to live and thrive in so many communities. And overall, Build Back Better will provide $39 billion to make America's infrastructure more sustainable, resilient, and equitable while reducing carbon pollution from the transportation sector. It invests $10 billion in high-speed rail corridor assistance to support the planning and development of high-speed rail projects. And Build Back Better also promotes economic development in communities nationwide by allocating $5.2 billion to the Economic Development Administration, including $3.3 billion to create regional innovation hubs, $1.2 billion to provide recompete investments in persistently distressed communities, $240 million to provide assistance to energy and industrial transition communities, and $240 million for pre-development and public works projects. Also the largest investment the nation has ever made to combat the climate crisis and clean up our environment, with $555 billion being invested over 10 years in clean energy. And there's a lot more. I'm not going to continue to break it down, but suffice it to say, there has been, with the passage of the Build Back Better Act in the House of Representatives, a statement that we're investing in people. And the Build Back Better Act is fully paid for and won't add to the nation's debt, because big corporations and the wealthiest who got the $5.8 trillion tax cut in 2017 will be required to pay their fair share, and no one making under $400,000 a year will pay a penny more in taxes. So Congress indeed has been very active passing legislation this year, but a few things remain to be done before year's end. The next few weeks in Congress will see a flurry of activity on legislation that must pass, including the National Defense Authorization Act, and also December 3rd is the deadline for Congress to pass a bill funding the government. And if a government funding bill is not passed by December 3rd, then there will be a government shutdown. But we're not planning for that to happen, and we anticipate passage of a continuing resolution that will punt the issue of government funding to late January or possibly February. The CRA is anticipated to pass this week. Then there is the debt ceiling, and the deadline for raising the debt ceiling is December the 15th. Senate leaders are divided on how to pursue an increase to the debt ceiling. Leaders Schumer and other Democrats have repeatedly called for bipartisan support to increase the debt ceiling. However, Senator McConnell has insisted that Democrats use the reconciliation process as a means to increase the debt ceiling without Republican support. The debt ceiling has historically been a bipartisan process, and as Democrats have pointed out, it should remain so. Depending on how close to the deadline negotiations go, we may be in session during the week of December 13th to pass that debt ceiling legislation. Last but not least, we await Senate action on the Build Back Better Act. Right now, Leader Schumer is finalizing negotiations with Senators Sinema and Manchin, who will no doubt make additional changes to the House-passed version of the Build Back Better Act. Once the Senate takes up the bill, Republicans can force delays with votes on amendments, but even after the Senate passes this bill, the House will need to reconvene to vote on the final agreed upon text, and it is within the realm of possibility for votes to occur on or near Christmas to pass Build Back Better. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know I've covered a lot. That's a lot to digest, but I thank you for your patience today as we break down what is in these transformative bills and what it means for us here in Georgia. I want to thank the Chamber for inviting me to spend some time with you today. I know many people are eager to know whether the Senate will pass the Build Back Better Act. We hear a lot about what certain senators from West Virginia and Arizona don't want in the bill, but I'm a glass half full guy, and I expect the Senate to do its work and send the bill back to the House, a piece of legislation that we can all get behind. And when we have a final bill, I know that this legislation, along with the infrastructure law, will help kickstart the rebuilding of America and Georgia. And I'm committed to helping Georgia's small businesses and those in Georgia's 4th district specifically take advantage of this transformational agenda. I want our small businesses to be at the forefront in helping us rebuild America. So once again, thank you for your time. I've run a little bit over. Please know that my door is open to you, and I'm looking forward to representing the DeKalb Perimeter Mall area once again after the redistricting goes into effect. And with that, thank you, and I yield back.
Wow, you guys really have been busy. And it's very promising to hear that you guys are focusing on reinvesting in people. Thank you, Congressman Johnson, for all of your engagement and support of our communities and helping to promote our mission of advancing economic prosperity. At this time, I would like to turn the stage over to Elaine, who will introduce our state senators and representatives. Elaine?
Thank you, Siobhan. So we believe it is very, very important for you to get to know your elected officials. That's why today we're going to be giving each one of them about 1 minute to introduce themselves. So I'd like to start off by introducing our senators, who all happen to be Democrats joining us this morning. Senator Emanuel Jones from the 10th District. Senator? All right, I think we may not have Senator Emanuel Jones with us this morning, so I'm going to skip and go to Senator Kim Jackson, who is representing our 41st District. Senator Jackson?
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's so good to be with you all. I am Senator Kim Jackson. I'm representing Stone Mountain and Tucker and Northlake and so many great parts of Decatur. And I'm just so grateful to be able to fight and advocate on behalf of us and our well-being here in DeKalb. Thanks so much for having me.
We look forward to hearing from you a little bit later. So next, I'd like to bring up Senator Elena Parent, who is from our 42nd District.
Can you hear me? Good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the DeKalb and Dunwoody Chambers for hosting this event again. I'm delighted to join you for another year to discuss all these very important topics. I, as you noted, have the 42nd Senate District. I've got parts of Atlanta in DeKalb. I've got cities of Decatur, Avondale Estates, parts of Chamblee and Brookhaven, and the Emory CDC area in my district. And it's just great to see everyone this morning.
According to you, as you know, We are going to now introduce some from our representatives. So I'd like to start off by introducing Representative Mike Walensky of the 79th District. Representative, there you go.
Hey, everybody. I'm State Rep Mike Walensky. I'm House District 79, makes up right now all of Dunwoody, Dorville, north of 285, small piece of Chambly. My district, next year, I'll be the incumbent, as long as people hopefully vote for me again, of House District 80, which now will have all of Dorville, a little bit more of Chambly, and we lost 2 precincts in the southwest of Dunwoody. I was born and raised in Sandy Springs, went to North Springs High School, graduated from University of Georgia, who I'll have to mention is 12-0 right now. And I'm honored to live in DeKalb County. My whole district is in DeKalb County and will continue to do so. So I look forward to talking and meeting with everybody.
Morning, and yes, and go dogs. All right, so finally, I'd like to introduce Representative Becky Evans, who is representing our 83rd District.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to the DeKalb Chamber and the Dunwoody Chamber, and it's so good to see my colleagues here as well. I'm Representative Becky Evans, representing the 83rd District, which is 16 miles long and 1 mile wide, running from the county.
I'm going to put it away.
So I have a lot of unique and wonderful neighborhoods. I have portions of Ellenwood, Candler McAfee, some high points. I have like Georgia State at Panthersville, the Michelle Obama Trail, the Seminole Landfill, GBI headquarters, South DeKalb Mall, East Lake Golf Course, Oakhurst, and then Collinwald and Fernbank Natural History Museum. So those are all places in our district, right by Emory University and Agnes Scott as well. And then in the new year, my district number will change to 89, and I'll have more of Ellenwood, and I'll have a little bit more of Atlanta as well. So I look forward to being with you today. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for those introductions. When I said go dogs, I actually didn't mean your Johnson, but that was really like on cue. But thank you all for your introductions. In a moment, I'm going to invite everyone to go to the sessions button on the left hand of your screen to join our legislators as they break out and discuss various topics. So I'm going to tell you what those topics are so you can decide which topic you'd like to hear a little bit more about this morning. First, we have economic and workforce development, which will be moderated by Michelle Arrington, who is the Director of State and Local Government Affairs at Verizon Wireless. And if you'd like to hear more about health and wellness, that will be moderated by Kendra Price, who is the Government Affairs Manager at Emory University. And finally, you heard a little bit about infrastructure and transportation this morning, as you heard from Congressman Hank Johnson. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about those two topics, that will be moderated by Betty Willis, who is the Senior Associate Vice President at Emory University. While in these sessions, our panelists will have a town hall type discussion where they'll be able to talk and they'll be able to take questions about those topics. So to make these sessions as interactive as possible, we'd like for you to use the chat feature that is probably located on the right side of your screen to engage in the conversation. But thank you all for joining us this morning. We are going to invite you to go to our breakout sessions now and enjoy the conversations that will be had there.